talk don't stop. Breakdowns all night till the next tip off. From better talk to the grind each game. Every stat, every play, yeah, we call it by name. We don't lose, we ride, that's the Boston way. Through the highs, through the lows, till we green every day. If you love this team, if you know the source, you already know this is your Celtics.
And I want to start with, I think we harped on it a little bit in the intro there, but the margin of error with this team, right? In these two games, the Celtics do not shoot well from three, especially in those third quarters where I think the Bucks game, they didn't even make a three in the third quarter. In this game, I think they missed, 10 of 11 threes in the third quarter. Just every single thing tightens when you're not making shots because your ability to rebound, your ability to play good defense, your ability to not pick up fouls just gets increased. The pressure when your shots aren't falling. When your shots are falling, it's pretty easy to sort of give up on some of those other aspects of the game because you can just bail out any mistake you make on one end with a three on the other end. And you usually, especially when you're making threes, you build up a pretty big lead just because of, the worth of threes in today's NBA game. But what's been happening is the Celtics are missing these shots, and it's leading to transition points, just opportunities for easy buckets on the other end. And the defense, I wouldn't say it's slipping. They are in a bit of a rough stretch defensively as of late. Their offense has been better before these last two games, so we haven't really seen it, but the defense has come back down to earth a little bit. Jordan Walsh hasn't had a great game these last two games here in terms of offensive production. His defense has still been fine, but he did get attacked a little bit last night from Cade Cunningham. He didn't play much in that second half. In the Milwaukee game, he didn't do much as well. But I think the problem comes down to the interior safety that, in terms of the defensive problems, the interior protection that a guy like Neemias Queta provides, but only Neemias Queta, right? There's nothing else behind him. And I think the Celtics at the trade deadline should go out and get a center that can play, right behind Queta, even in front. Someone that's, better than Garza, because Garza's unplayable right now with the way that he is unable to guard anyone out on the perimeter, can't move his feet. And then on the offensive end, he's pretty much a dud as well. But Queta's been great. I mean, there are the occasional games where he's out of position slightly. He is, out on the perimeter and he gets sort of torched by a quick and dynamic guard. There are plays where, he picks up some cheap fouls that he doesn't need to and gets that sort of out of positioning that I was talking about. And that leads to offensive rebounds for the other team, stuff like that. But for the most part, he's had a terrific season. But he's not the player that you can play 40 minutes a night. You have to find guys that can replace him. And that's why the Celtics have been going small most of the time and playing guys like Jordan Walsh, Ugo Gonzalez, Josh Minot. Not, necessarily at the 5 position, but maybe, with 2 guys at the 4, stuff like that. And it's worked offensively. Now, Queta's not a bad offensive player when it comes to, screens and lobs. He can do a great job with that. His floaters and sort of push shots have been working well for him as of recently as well. But he does bring, or does lack the ability to shoot, deep shots, threes as well, right? So that can be hard on your spacing of your offense. But they've worked it out pretty well when he's on the court. It hasn't been a problem offensively. And, for the most part, when they put on guys like Jordan Walsh, Ugo Gonzalez, Josh Minot to take up those minutes when Queta's off the court, the threes have been falling, right? So the things that Queta lacks are picked up by some of those smaller guards, or not guards, smaller forwards. But I expect that shooting to start to come down, and we're seeing it in the last 2 games. Not these giant stretches where they can't make threes. It seems like three-point shooting on the Celtics over the last many seasons, I'd say last 5 seasons or something, is contagious. When one guy's not making shots, everyone's not making the shots, which is really unfortunate for winning these games where, you're just, everyone's in a hole shooting. But enough of that. The offense has been great for the most part, besides these last 2 games, with the Jordan Walshes, the Hugo Gonzalez, Josh Minot, even Shireman to an extent. But despite Jordan Walsh being a great on-ball defender, their defense has, gone downhill a slightly bit when Queta's off the court, and that's just because they don't have that rim protection. Josh Minot can't really play a 5. He's just not tall enough, despite, his efforts, and he does the best he can. But, you're not going to be able to guard guys like, for example, I'm not even going to say, like, Thunder's a different story because nobody can guard the Thunder except the Spurs found a way in that NBA Cup somehow. But even a guy in the Eastern Conference, right? Giannis didn't play on Thursday when the Bucks came to town. But say Giannis is playing, you're not going to be able to guard. Actually, Giannis is a bad player because the Celtics, in the past seasons have put smaller forwards on Giannis just to try and impact his playmaking and his shooting. But let me think of a center, maybe a center like even in this game against Jaden Ivey or Jane Duren. Not Ivy, Duren, right? He's one of those bigger centers that, a guy like Walsh can't guard, right? A guy like Josh Minot can't guard until you have to play, a center on him. And with the way this team is playing, Jane Duren plays a lot more minutes than Queta does. And those minutes when Queta's not on the court, the Celtics are getting exposed. They need that center that can, even if it's, you need someone that is at the same level as Queta is at the very least. You don't want anyone lower down like Garza because you already have that player, right? You need someone that can take Queta's minutes and allow the Celtics to play more lineups with a traditional center. A guy like Valanciunas might work. There are some guys that can play that I guess Valanciunas is probably a little bit worse defensively, but he does shoot threes and can play better offensively. You might need that as well. But right now, we're concerned about the offense or the defense. And yes, the offense has its struggles, but the defense is something that is going to continue to be a problem. Whereas the offense, you're going to have games where you shoot well, games where you don't. We can worry about the offense later. We have plenty of offensive guys. We don't have enough strong defensive guys that are lengthy centers or can play the center position. That's the one problem. The second problem is the late game execution. Both these losses were basically won in crunch time on a variety of things that cost the Celtics games. The turnovers, some of the passes that Derek White had last night against the Pistons were just horrific to watch. Some, just throwing the ball to the other team. A couple plays where he lost the dribble and got stripped. Plays that you don't usually see from veteran guards like Derek White. Which, Jaylen Brown, yes, he has that turnover problem, but he doesn't lose the ball when he's dribbling. He loses the ball sometimes when he's sort of tunneling to the basket, which he's done a great job of avoiding this season, right? Anything less than 4 turnovers for Jaylen Brown is a good night. Now, I'm not saying, it's not like he's a 4 turnover a night guy. There are most games he's only in the 1s and 2s. But there are some games where he does get up there, and if it's below 4, you'll take that from Jaylen Brown. There's a bigger issue with Jaylen Brown, which is the free throws. He's averaging, 30 points a night over the last, month or so. I think he's at 29.1 or something for the season. I don't even know the last time that he had under 30 points, but he didn't get a triple-double, because if I remember correctly, the last time he had under 30 points, he had like a 19, 12, and 11 game or something like that. So a triple-double, which, is just as valuable as a 30-point night. But it's the 7 of 14 from the free throw line. And I talked a little bit about this last night on the Instant Reaction. But when you're a team that doesn't get to the line much, with the play style that you play, but also the fact that Jaylen Brown gets a pretty bad whistle from refs. Like, I'm not going to go into my opinions on refs and whatever, because, there are definitely plays where the Celtics foul the other team and they don't get free throws. But it just seems like, Jayson Tatum less so, but Jaylen Brown definitely gets a bad whistle, especially for the way he plays. In fact, he picks up a lot of offensive fouls, with his elbow, which are, I'm not going to say they're not offensive fouls, but, it could be called both ways, I would say. But that being said, you're getting to the line 14 times. That's not as much as some of the elite guards in this league, as I had said, right? Jalen Brunson, SGA, right, getting to the line 20-plus times. You have to take advantage of it. You can't be going 7 of 14, missing half your free throws, missing 2 vital free throws in crunch time to make it a 2-point game. just smokes both of them off the back rim. And he said after the game that this game was on him. Too many missed free throws. Too many bad passes, turnovers. But I don't know what it is with Jaylen Brown, but he just cannot make his free throws. I think he's like around 75, 76% for his career. And, given that he doesn't get to the line much, you can't be affording that many missed shots. 3 points to keep games close, especially with the lack of offense that he has around him. But that being said, if you're another player, you can afford, if you're SGA or Jalen Brunson, you can afford to miss a couple free throws because you're getting to the line so many more times that, occasionally you can miss free throws. But you can't shoot 50% if you're any player, right? It doesn't matter if you're taking 30 free throws or you're taking 14. You can't miss half your free throws. That just is never going to work. Because teams, if you're shooting down in the 50s, teams will start fouling you on purpose to, get to the line. Something that we see with Mitchell Robinson on the Knicks, where teams, including the Celtics last year in the playoffs, just, go with Hacker Robinson and just foul him, put him to the line. And in that game, in that series, he actually made his free throws. And I don't think that will happen with Jaylen Brown, just because I think, at any moment he could knock down all his free throws. He is a superstar in this league. But that is just one thing to keep an eye that he needs to continue to work on, continue to get better at. Something that's haunted him his entire career, and I would like to see get fixed. I talked about Jaylen Brown, the defensive attention that he's getting from teams, right? That makes sense, obviously, because, you're without Tatum, you go to the next guy, doubling him, and, for the most part, yes, the Celtics have gotten better in terms of shooting, but they have these big stretches in games, especially in these last two games where they'll miss just, 10 threes in a row, and that, even if you make them towards the end of the game, missing 10 threes in a row sort of just, puts your offense in a hole, can basically, that game can become like a 20-point deficit by the end of the third quarter. Even if you play well in the fourth, it might just not be enough to overcome, which is sort of what happened in this game, right? The Pistons were able to take a 12-point lead or whatever it was at the end of the third quarter just because of how, poor the Celtics offense was. And they clawed it all the way back to around 4 before Jaylen Brown missed those 2 free throws. And they were never able to get it closer. They just didn't have quite enough time to get the lead before it went to, just free throw exchange from the Pistons, right? The game, it really only was a 4-point game. Yes, it ended in 7, but that was obviously from the Celtics fouling at the end, right? You need enough time to get the lead before it goes to, fouling and hoping they miss their free throws. I think the effort's still strong from this team. This is the last thing I want to talk about, by the way, about these two games, and then we'll move on to the Jayson Tatum conversation. But the effort is still there, right? Guys are still hustling. I think they've gotten some unlucky bounces, right? Effort does a lot of times just come down to, right place at the right time in terms of, guys like Jordan Walsh, Ugo Gonzalez diving on the floor, right? You just have to end up with the ball somehow. Offensive rebounds as well, right? At some point, you just have to find a way to get the ball in your hands and not let the opposing team get another chance to break your hearts. But right now, the results are a little bit off from the effort that they're giving. And eventually, I think that will turn around in the regular season. In the postseason, everyone plays with effort, so the Celtics aren't going to be able to rely on that, which, we'll see if Jayson Tatum's back. It's a totally different story. But if you're relying just on effort, which the Celtics are this season, that's basically how they win every game they do win. It's on purely effort and the occasional brilliance. Well, actually, not occasional, but the consistent brilliance of Jaylen Brown. But in the playoffs, right, you're not going to be able to rely on effort. Everyone plays with effort, and so they'll have to, I think it'll be a struggle, especially in the playoffs, a round 1 exit, especially if you play a team like the Pistons, just because of how hard everyone plays.